A lot of my favorite books are demanding, but when I'm feeling anxious or uneasy, my reading habits change. They have to. I'm no longer looking for the most immersive, challenging, stimulating book. I'm looking for something to steady me. I'm looking for something to remind me how to think, yes, but more how to be present, how to breathe, how to be calm. There's a line from Haruki Murakami I keep coming back to, and this sentiment has been echoed and precursors of this too in many writers. If you only read the books everyone else is reading, you can only think what everyone else is thinking. And it's kind of like that when you're anxious. You're like this impressionable child. You're not in control. Your thoughts are looping. So here are a few of the books I come back to when I need something quiet, when I need something grounding, when I need something to make me get out of this feeling of uneasiness or anxiety, or to just recognize that I can live with it. These are the works that shift my perspective. So the first one here is Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. Now, this is one I came back to recently. It's beautiful. It's not really about poetry. It's about how you live with uncertainty. Rilke never really tries to resolve anxiety. Nothing as crass as that. What he says is you should live the questions. But the manner in which he writes is just so soothing. It's just so rich with wisdom and insights into the world that we live in. And there's also this idea I love in one of his letters where Rilke says, "Once my works are published, they are no longer mine," which I take to mean when we're thinking about anxiety, that once we put our work into the world, our efforts out into the world, we get to release them. And I find that a very relieving thought as well. So, Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. The second one here is this one's a bit different. This one's more of an adventure story, something that gets you out of your head, which is something you have to do a lot of times when you're feeling anxious. And that's The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. This one calms you in a different way, right? It's absorbing. Your thoughts tend to loop when you're anxious. And this helps just break the loop, in my experience. It's just such a full plot. It's got so much movement and momentum, and it's long enough, to last, to outlast your anxiety a lot of times. You don't have the space to stay in your own head. You get pulled into this world of escape, revenge, transformation, and there's something really comforting about that. So, uh, just being taken somewhere else for a while is one of the best recommendations that I can have. Finding a book that you love, a book that you feel is going to be an adventure for you. The Count of Monte Cristo did that for me. Another one here, and this is more on the end of books to help you get over anxiety because you love them, because they're special to you. They play a certain nostalgic role. Um, they they fill a gap that you were missing. And this one is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. It's one of my favorite books. It calms me in that quiet way because it's so human. It's full of flawed people. It's not a book that you read and everything's peaceful and goes well. That's not what happens at all. There's a lot of challenges in this book, difficult choices, um, some very unlikable characters, very disagreeable as well. But it's just so deeply human in the underlying sense that we're all trying to do our best, even as flawed as we are. It's just present all throughout. I'll talk about Steinbeck more in the future, but the reason that my preference is for his later work or his more mature works like East of Eden, in my opinion, compared to something like Grapes of Wrath, which is more political, I think he just really understands the depth of good and evil fighting inside of every human heart, and how just reminding yourself of that can help you get above anxiety is one of the reasons that for me East of Eden really fits this role. Also, the writing is just so beautiful, deliberate. It actually slows you down as you read it because you just want to savor every word that Steinbeck writes, and it makes you reflect instead of spiraling. So it's just a perfect way to break that spiral in another way. Um, and again, it doesn't ignore suffering. You don't need to ignore the suffering to get out of anxiety, right? It just puts it into the bigger context. And I think that's really the reason this one works well for me. Another one here, this one I've talked about multiple times before, but I have to bring it up. The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Graham. This has sort of become my comfort story. But there's something deeply calming about this narrative. It slows everything down. Um, it intentionally, the stakes feel small because it's this gentle world of, anthropomorphized animals and it just reminds you everything doesn't have to be urgent all the time, right? We don't have to be go, go, go. We're in this world. A lot of times we're stuck in on mode. And it offers an opportunity to step out of our own mind for a while and just be and just enjoy and try not to be a Mr. Toad of this world. So I guess, The Wind in the Willows is, or a wonderful children's book that you feel a connection with, could fill this role here as well. And here's one, a quick shift, because not all of the following ones are fiction here. This one is Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. And this one's actually a memoir based on real life conversations between Morrie Schwartz and his former student. And, I think it matters because sometimes when you're feeling anxious, fiction helps you escape, which is amazing. But nonfiction can be great too because it can really ground you that this feeling isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just something you're going through right now. And there's something really calming about hearing somebody speak super honestly about life, aging, meaning. Some of these questions we often avoid. Often they're seen as taboo, you know, and it's especially meaningful coming from someone who lived through it and really reflected on it. Um, Tuesdays with Morrie, it tells the story of Morrie Schwartz as he's essentially dying slowly, as he's deteriorating. And so it's if fiction isn't quite what you need, something like this can feel a bit like sitting down with just a wise person and listening, and it can be really what you need. So this one really brings you back to what matters, and resets what's important because everything feels important when you're anxious, but it's about mortality and, you know, not in a heavy way though, in a way that makes life feel meaningful. Now, speaking of a heavier way, this one is a hard to read, but an important one, and that is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. I should say that this is often thought of primarily as a Holocaust book, and while it does, come out of that experience, obviously, I don't think that's really the point. There are many powerful books on the history of the Holocaust, whether you want a more academic work like Why by Peter Hayes or some, firsthand account by writers like Primo Levi, something like a memoir like The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. All of those are wonderful and worth reading, but they're not necessarily what you would reach for if you were anxious, right? Frankl went through suffering, but his conclusion is simple. Meaning is something we choose in response to life. When anxiety makes everything feel out of control, I think Man's Search for Meaning is a great reminder that you still hold the response in your hands. It's still your choice how you respond. And that is a really important reminder when you're feeling uncertain, when you're feeling untethered or anxious. And, of course, there are so many more books like this, honestly. You can make endless lists depending on, what kind of comfort you're looking for, what kind of support, what kind of books you want to read when you're feeling anxious. But I think it's also worth saying that, some of the most helpful writing on anxiety doesn't come from novels. A lot of philosophical and religious texts in particular, they've been grappling with these ideas for a long time and often in a really direct way too. So there are honestly dozens of works that one could mention, some for existentialists, some for Stoics, some for aesthetes, some for any kind of person. I think we all contain multitudes. We're all combinations of all. I don't think anyone is one simple uh, life philosophy is the only way that guides them. But I just want to mention three that I think tackle anxiety really beautifully in the more philosophical or religious sphere. The first one here is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. It's like mental training, short, direct. He, reflects upon what you can and cannot control. Obviously, within the Stoic category, this is one of the big ones. It doesn't necessarily comfort you emotionally as much as it grounds you rationally, but I think this is exactly what a lot of people need when they feel anxious. The Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, which is one of the most important uh, tech philosophical texts for Taoism. Um, it really does the opposite. it lets go control entirely, right? It's all about flow and acceptance, not forcing things. Instead of being a rock in a stream and not moving, you let yourself flow with the water. That's kind of what this one is. And when anxiety comes from trying to manage everything, this kind of a release, I think, can be really great. And then the third one, we could probably include the whole Hebrew Bible here, but I'm just going to focus on the book of Psalms. They're raw. They don't hide anxiety, they express it fully, right? Fear, doubt, hope, everything is there. But sometimes what helps most isn't solving anxiety, it's just seeing it spoken about honestly, seeing it depicted by some people who have gone through a lot and just saying, yeah, that's right. That's what it is. So none of these books fix anxiety, but a lot of them, I think, interrupt it. They give you a perspective shift, something you can use to create a different way of looking at things. And sometimes that's enough to just loosen its grip on you a little bit so you don't feel as overwhelmed. So maybe don't reach for the loudest book, for the most philosophically intense, work next time you feel anxious. Reach for something quieter because the right book at the right time, it doesn't just change the way you think, it changes how you carry what you're feeling. And that's super important when it comes to feeling anxious. So I hope that helped. If you got anything out of this video, please make sure to like and subscribe, as this really supports me in my work here. And until next time, guys, thank you for watching and God bless.